Good morning, fellow Ambazonians. Happy Sunday. Today, na Sunday number 6 day for this number 11 month for the year 2022. My name na Capo Daniel. I am the Deputy Defense Chief of the Ambazonian Defense Forces and the spokesperson of the Ambazonian Governing Council, aka Sense Pass King, una own countryman. Una welcome to our daily podcast, a program where we bring una the truth, we bring una meaningful information, fact-based analysis for help we as we work for this journey to our freedom, the independence of Ambazonia. Good people of Ambazonia, the title for this episode today na the report card of Ambazonia. Who is leading Ambazonia and where are we in terms of our unity amongst Ambazonian factions post the Toronto conference of Ambazonia defense groups. But first, we want to establish the end of investigation into the adoption of hospital staffs in the Wombo Hospital in the great state of Momo in Batibo. Following our investigation, the 9 hospital staffs were adopted by Blinky with the help of 2 of his top lieutenants who are all living in Numbeng. They had assistance from some groups in Widikum. These groups have been identified as Ambazonian forces and have presented themselves as Ambazonian forces. Nevertheless, there are also evidence that these groups of individuals are just gangs that exist and have no legitimate presentation of themselves as Ambazonian forces from Widikum. They carried out the adoption. The hospital staffs were taken to a location in Numbeng. Due to public inquiry, we'd want to put out audio messages from Blinky, Commander Blinky himself, so that our people should know for sure that he is the one behind the adoption. We had previously put excerpts of this audio. The public demand is that we made all the audio out so that our people can be sure who were behind this adoption. Listen.
That border has been a woman, and before doctor that border na coming here wumbo. Bida big gamogam to work baggy. Program to work bag to take nyemiti to work baggy bina coming here wumbo only. Be a government kama doctor that borders. Nyewongo. If cream away come or in a change to your young I mean fine. Bim or be wound be yenga hospital wumbo. Ye jinga they got a hospital for 1 week. Be ambush every day. Be amoka angu all the time. To Burmbe we and beat you. Then I could Burmbe to suppose that me to bene a share back. The enemy net on up. I could walk around Kukara. Yeah, was always more joke and first audio. At the Botanigam, yes, Kaiko, the Tanigam. To Matam on a pa, go moche Krambe Canubiri. Ubiri, Kagani bon. Biraga and I thought beautiful ye, anyone in you that were born. Chevin you then pretending I say pastor, kayak, or a check, kayak, support, or a check, a lie. Ubri wanted to carry politics. Ubri a fagana or John Birini fag. Yes. Some of you are your government, then government ran a phone. I thought you're to Bubara, our government with you. Clear pharmacy. Clear pharmacy, jonte fo Nigeria jinga fiwe. Ti won mo be tawe pharmacy. Kani a government was on government we jifu then clear wa. Ako atambe ye jum jang mo one che because we jum jwatin babari jim akiga. Mo mengo tante gan ta ma kere nga brite jonwe. Ine woro kom na ni we bi won ne woro kom na ni we bi government kom na ni we wa to kom na ni we government. So,
those are the audios. According to our investigation, after having interviewed most of those who were involved, none of them were interrogated on the basis of this explanation of Commander Blinky. Money was demanded to their family. Money was paid. The reasons provided by Commander Blinky was false. The incidents he cited of Cameroon military being in that hospital for a week was also false. Blinky is currently based in Ground 1, and it is our conclusion that this is an issue of people wrongfully and unjustifiably being removed from the hospital. They were not suspected of working with La Republique to Cameroon, but they were just rounded up for other purposes. The adoption was used also by the handlers of Blinky, Kemi Ashu, and the rest of the individuals that propagate the structure of SACO as a sabotage to our liberation, trying to pin it on General Efang and the Ambazonian Defense Forces, who were actually deployed in Gozang in order to assist for the release of these hospital members. All Ambazonian forces congregated in Toronto had agreed that humanitarian access should be guaranteed and that no legitimate Ambazonian forces should target hospital staffs, and this reflects the conclusion of our investigation into this matter. For the thinking of the day of the War Council of the Ambazonian Governing Council, usually when police come to arrest people, they state their crime. But usually it's a customary practice that police can call somebody and tell you, follow me to the office. So Ambazonian fighters can also sometimes tell people to follow them to their camps. That will not mean that they have been taken away against their will, because they have explained to the subject that they should follow them out of their will to their camps. So when they don't handcuff you, they don't blindfold you, they don't force you, even though they may carry guns, they just say, follow me, and you follow them. The War Council will not consider that as adoption. That is the thinking of the day within the Governing Council. For it to be adoption or kidnapping, it must be against the will of the individual that are involved. My office as the anti-kidnapping czar have authorization to communicate to the Ambazonian public when such incidents of national importance are reported, to make statement, to carry out investigation irrespective of which area of control the incidents lie, because such incidents have national ramification on all Ambazonian factions. Our qualification of the actions of fighters, gangs or cartel that involve our citizens being adopted, kidnapped or unlawfully arrested is only made based on evidence that we have on a case-by-case basis. We do not determine whether a person has been kidnapped, adopted due to our opinion alone. We do so based on evidence that are available and that have been substantiated by Ambazonian network of intelligence officers on the ground. The Blink, we respect Blink as a constituted fighting force in Ambazonia, but there have been no evidence that the people that were adopted were justified, their actions were justified in any shape or form. They never articulate any justification of their actions. They actually lied to cover up their actions. One can only interpret the motivation behind such activity. If one judged from the actions of those who handled them, it was primarily used to blackmail the Ambazonian Governing Council and to undermine the entire Ambazonian liberation struggle to an extent by brandishing at a sensitive moment that Ambazonian fighters are doing kidnapping for ransom and are targeting hospital staffs or humanitarian staffs, even when those families were not the richest people around that area. In handling such incidences, the Ambazonian Governing Councils do not want our declaration to give an opportunity to the enemy to use a narrative or to reinforce their narrative in the international communities that paints a negative image of Ambazonian constituted forces on the ground. We are very mindful and we are very careful about such declarations during such incidents. That's why we do not jump to conclusion and we do not just call them kidnapping, but we use evidence on the ground to make our declarations. According to the Ambazonian Governing Council, 98% of activities of Ambazonian forces are in line with the customary practices across the globe with armed conflicts. We know that the ADF hardly does kidnapping because of a robust system put in place with checks and balance and a command and control structure. But that does not mean that ADF has never been involved in such practices, and when that practices comes up, We always, in our public communication, indicates this to our public and condemn it and take every necessary action to get such individuals released as soon as possible and make sure that the commanders are sanctioned or removed from that particular area where that bad behavior have taken place. We have replaced generals, we have replaced commanders, we have redeployed them when incidents like this has happened in the past. This should give confidence to the Ambazonian people of our conduct and the inspiration and leadership we provide for the rest of the country. We have put publicly criteria where individuals and business people are identified as people who should make certain or have certain expectation to do contribution to assist the liberation movement as a matter of civil duty and national duty. Those communications are made public, and those individuals are being approached with an institutional mindset, not individual soldiers going after individuals who might just be small-scale business people or individuals around their neighborhood for the purpose of raising funds. Our liberation tax system is a comprehensive approach for institutional demand of finances, for both the responsibility we have with the law of territoriality to raise funds within our liberated areas on our state to help fund the armed resistance and to provide basic services that we have taken the responsibility to, as well as maintain our community educational system. Before any action is taken by the Ambazonian Defense Forces for anybody in our territory, evidence for notice must be provided to the Governing Council for that person for actions to be taken. Members of the public should never be randomly being picked up for purposes of collecting money. It should be done through institutions. Arbitrariness should be discouraged at all costs. Those are the stance of the Ambazonian Governing Council. Ladies and gentlemen, back now to the topic of today, which is the report card of Ambazonia. The various Ambazonian factions that are involved in fighting La République du Cameroon are doing so through military confrontation and the mobilization of our people and the call for our people to continue and to sustain the resistance and rejection of La République du Cameroon. There are 7 nationalist movements that are involved or are providing institutional or organization leadership in this war effort and in the resistance against Cameroon rule. You have the MORISC, you have the Consortium, you have the Ambazonian Governing Council, you have the IG, you have the Republic of Ambazonia, you have the APLM, who are all engaging in this resistance and armed conflict against La République du Cameroon. Who is who in Ambazonia? Which is the biggest faction and who is the leading faction, if that may interest our people. The Ambazonian people can have a clear barometer of who is doing what, who is representing the armed conflict in Ambazonia, based on the barometer of the celebration of 1st of October. The 1st of October, one can clearly see a clear picture of who and what area in Ambazonia has Ambazonian presence in terms of military and in terms of the population mobilization that sustained that military. For the past year, if one was to look across Ambazonia, we have had celebration in all 13 states in Ambazonia. There is only one group in Ambazonia that have had celebration in multiple states under one ground zero command structure, and that is the ADF and the Ambazonian Governing Council. For the past 2 years, the Ambazonian Governing Council on the ground with its military and their population have demonstrated 1st of October celebration in the following states: in the great state of Fako, in the great state of Meme, in the great state of Manu, in the great state of Lebialem, in the great state of Momo, in the great state of Mezam, in the great state of Bui, and in the great state of Menchum. This is the only organization that have had multiple and cross-state demonstration of presence, both military with the population under one leadership in ground zero, under one clear command and control structure on ground zero, and in the diaspora under General Efang and under the Ambazonian Governing Council and the Ambazonian War Council. The leader of the Ambazonian Governing Council, Dr. Cho Ayaba, also provides a strong inspiration for the rise of self-defense group and the picking up of arms to fight for the defense of Ambazonia. The Ambazonia Governing Council, through its communication network, the TV, and its various officials have maintained public mobilization to sustain the resistance against La République du Cameroon and keep the Ambazonian resistance and war alive. The second in this ranking will be the IG of Siseko Ayuk Tabi. Siseko Ayuk Tabi represents an icon in the Ambazonian liberation movement that commands respect. There have been only one military force that have demonstrated in Ambazonia, that is in the great state of Manu, a single force and unit under General Fierno Bullet, who have pledged allegiance to Siseko's IG, but have made declaration that shows that his command ends with the General Fierno Bullets and not with the representative of the IG care. Even though they have used videos from that force, the force have made it clear that their command structure ends with their general. The IG care maintains a TV network that campaigns to sustain the resistance against Cameroon and will rank second. You have multiple defense groups on ground zero that we have identified as well. The Mountain Lions, the many various defense groups on ground zero, whose command and control structure rests and ends with the commanders who are in charge and the generals in charge. Most of the diaspora representatives are not command officials, but are simply donors who hold influence, but not command and control over those forces. The Ambazonian Governing Council and the ADF is the only force on the ground with multiple state presence, with one command and control, with officials in the diaspora that have command and control over those forces. They have demonstrated it by replacing generals, appointing and dismissing generals, transferring soldiers and deploying soldiers across state lines. Third in the list will be the APLM of Ebenezer Akwanga. Ebenezer Akwanga is an icon in the Ambazonian liberation struggle, and his force, the Sokadef, is the pioneering self-defense forces that have continued to mobilize its forces. It has just one unit in a state presence in the great state of Meme under General Transporter. General Daiman, who was once a Sokadef general, have made declaration that have cut off himself from the structure of the Sokadef. Ebenezer Akwanga commands huge respect amongst the various Ambazonian defense groups on ground zero and has a nationalist approach in its appeal for mobilization. Even though they have stopped the mobilization of public campaign through their radio and Facebook live messages, Ebenezer Akwanga APLM will rank a third. Organization such as the Consortium will rank the fourth amongst Ambazonian groups that have maintained public mobilization of our people and the sustenance of the call for resistance against Cameroon that has helped keep our liberation war alive. This SCNC have become redundant and silenced and do not engage in public campaign to sustain the resistance against La République du Cameroon. Maurice have also ended all public mobilization of our people, but do have communications of press release and positions and opinions of their leaders through Twitter. But as a matter of mobilizing the public for self-defense or for popular resistance against Cameroon rule, Maurice have become silent. ROA, the Republic of Ambazonia of Godidinka, have also remained silent in terms of mobilization of our population to resist La République du Cameroon's occupation or the mobilization of force or involved directly in the command and mobilization of troops to fight against Cameroon occupation. On ground zero, various platforms have emerged for defense forces to try to regroup forces that were under the ARF to project themselves as a nationalist movement across state border, such as Ground Zero Command Center, which did not work. You have ASC that didn't work. You have the ARF under late Field Marshal Oliver Lequier that have most of the generals have disavowed themselves from that platform. You now have Ground Zero Command Group with forces that have also paid allegiance to them. You have the same forces that have paid allegiance to the Unity group network that have emerged. So you have most of these individual groups paying allegiance to multiple factions or multiple platforms for national projection, but the command and control of those groups still rest with the particular soldiers and the generals that are in command of those units. They have rejected all political alliance. All groups that belongs to these groups, these joint platform have rejected all the political leadership that have raised questions about their declaration and the ramification on those political factions that claims command and control of those fighting forces. These statistics should give the Ambazonian people a clear understanding of who is who. In terms of Sako Ikome and Chris Anu, they remain a strong influence on social media, and they can be a disruptive and a positive force in Ambazonian mobilization as they choose to do so. State or the interest of state, such as Ambazonia, is best and effectively represented by factions based on their level of influence on the ground or their level of engagement on the various conflicting fronts with La République du Cameroon. We have two for now: the military confrontation as well as the popular resistance or rejection of Cameroon. Groups are seen as leading based on their influence on these various two factions, and the list and the report card is out for the Ambazonian people to make their own assessment and judge for themselves. Ambazonians have often been manipulated by political scavengers that because they are diverse, it means that they are not unified. Ambazonians are united for the goal of independence, which have 96% of our population that supports it, according to polls from the AGC of late Cardinal Tumi. Our population should collaborate for effective presentation of ourselves, and there should be a realignment with a memorandum of understanding or understanding for collaboration amongst our groups and amongst our forces. Unity in collaboration is the position and the approach for unity by the Ambazonian Governing Council. Unity in uniformity is a distraction and has a potential to undermine collaboration in itself. Capo Daniel, signing off.